Welcome to my show, Athena, Autistic Artist College. Hello, Kathleen.
Hello.
How are you today?
Pretty good. Thank you for asking.
You're welcome. So, Kathleen, maybe you could share your upbringing. That you are from France and your childhood. What was it like for you?
Um, a little disconnected. I didn't really feel fully connected and I felt awkward, but I didn't know why. I didn't understand. So I thought there was something wrong with me a little bit. I wasn't sure.
Was that in your inner thoughts that you knew yourself?
Yeah, and the way I interacted with people felt like flat sometimes, or I was wondering why they didn't respond, or why they did respond where I didn't expect it, or so I always felt like a little bit out of sync.
In school, how was your learning, education?
Um, Pretty smooth, and yet very anxious. I was really worried to do something wrong or have a bad grade um, or not be recognized, or so anxiety is a dominant throughout my school.
It was probably overwhelming, like an overload.
Probably, yeah. I I used to be told that I was dreaming all the time, or that I was chatting all the time. So that was on all my school reports: dreamer or chit chatter, and either or. And so I was not listening very much, apparently. I mean, it looked like it, I guess. I had good grades, so I was listening in some ways, but probably not the way it was expected. Does that sound like familiar?
Yes, yes, very. Definitely was going to school was like an overload, overwhelming, lots of people.
Yeah,
It was so many conversations, but that all in one. It was multiple conversations and not able to connect, like in your own world, and
yeah,
and like you're there, but you're not included.
yeah, exactly. And I remember I was blurting out something that I knew. Oh, I get this one. And then I was saying it. And then it was weird, right? Because then I got in trouble for saying something that was actually true or useful to me. So disconnect is the right word for me too. Out of sync. Yeah.
What was like for you going to like the upper grades, like high school, college? Was that all the same,
Um,
feeling flat or
yeah.
disconnected?
Yeah. High school definitely the same. College was a little better because um, I didn't have to go to all the classes. So that helped a lot, actually. I didn't have to get that overwhelming number of people. And I had more time in between classes. I still felt the awkwardness and disconnect. Like, I had a couple friends, but that's it. I didn't have like a huge amount of people I knew, or
Because the
and
energy
always.
is not there.
Mm?
The energy means like other students that were not able to connect, even though it
Yeah,
was abstract to us. Like say
yeah,
being in your own world or being flat or not being understood.
Yeah, exactly. That totally adds up for me.
And
And
the
but
language
at
is
the same
different.
time, yeah, the college years were easier in some ways for me because I didn't feel like I had to connect, and so I felt less pressure, I think. Um, and
How
then
was the, yeah.
after college, I went to a master's, so that was even better because the classes were very small, and so that was much easier.
Definitely, because then you have more time to study, or the teacher could work with you.
Yeah, and there was like 15, 20 people in the same class, so it was really very much more manageable than the high school and the middle school. It was more like 30 kids, so really
Or more.
high or more, yeah. But then at that level, in the master's degree, it was 20, and then like really people that are focused, so it was not the same energy at all. Much easier to deal with, and a lot less classes, really. It was more working at home and doing my own thing.
Did you feel accepted as a child, as
um
growing up?
yeah, pretty much, except the awkwardness that I felt everywhere. um I felt accepted mostly, yeah, at home too. um
Your interests, your gifts. What was what was your gifts? Like art.
oh Writing and science were my two main gifts, where I was studying on my own. I was doing things like on my own and reading. There was no Google at the time, but in today's world, I would have been really educated because I would have looked at Google. I used to have access to a library where they had this encyclopedia, these huge books. So I spent hours reading those.
What degree, what degree did you graduate with in school?
Several. So I started with science, so pharmacology, so really like medical orientation. And then I worked a few years in research, and I didn't like the job, and so I had to decide to do something else. And so I went to consulting company because I thought then I'll figure out what I want to do. And then as a consultant, I really started to specialize in tech, and so I migrated towards tech. And then I figured that, well, maybe an MBA would be a good idea because I need to understand why I'm doing this. And and so then I went to get an MBA.
Now you graduated in France or Colorado?
Yeah.
France.
No, in France. Much easier, much cheaper, really.
So from France, what was you liked about that country versus Colorado that you live now?
Oh, that's where I was born, so I didn't really think about it at the time. Um, it felt really, I wanted to travel, I wanted to see the world. So that was one of my big motivations to move abroad, because it felt like really small. I wanted to really go. go out and about and discover other cultures. And so I went to Germany first, and then I spent a few months in London in UK. And after that, I went back to Germany, and I was in a company that was merging with a US company, and so they offered positions in the US to mix up the teams. And so I applied, and so then I moved to the US. At first, I was in Washington, D.C. And then,
Horses.
yeah, horses have been in my life all my life, all the time.
You did horseback
My
riding
dad
when
was
you were
a
a
vet.
child?
Yeah, my dad was a vet, and he had horses, and I learned to ride. And so across my whole life, I always had horses. And so now, after having worked in tech for about 20 years, I decided to change, and I went back to school to get a psychology degree. And what I wanted to work with horses because I love being around them. And so that's how I decided to become a therapist and work with horses.
That's great news. Do you understand the energy with
Yeah,
horses?
yes. Horses can tell how we feel inside, and they also can tell if we are not showing it. And so for um, work like psychotherapy, it's really helping us finding out, what is it that's hidden that we want to bring out. For example, I have a horse who's really sensitive to people who are angry. It's a mare. She stops. She doesn't do anything. She plants herself and there's nothing happening. So then the anger comes out, right? Immediately. It's really irritating. And so it's a great way to work on emotions that are not really expressed. And then, the horses help us. First expressing them, second feeling them, because when the horse is stuck, that means that the person doesn't want to express their anger. And so, like, actually, it's okay to express anger. There's nothing wrong with that. You're just not allowed to hit. I work with kids, so usually that's how it starts. But you can say I'm angry. That's cool. There's no problem with that. Does that make sense?
Yes, because
Mm-hmm.
the horse sense if you feel comfortable with that animal.
Yeah, definitely. And also the horse is really preferring when we're authentic, and so it's powerful that way. Because the minute if my horse stops, the minute the person says I'm angry, then she's good to go. And so it helps people really realize how they're blocking themselves when they're not authentic.
When you're working with the children, did you notice their connection, their emotions, and
Oh yeah.
their communication with the animal, with the horses?
Yeah, definitely. It's much easier to tell an animal what's going on than to tell an adult stranger, which is probably intimidating. I try not to be, but I'm still an adult. So for a kid, it's much easier to talk to a horse.
Definitely. And when did you learn about autism that came into your life? When,
Mm-hmm.
even you know that you're in your own world and you know that you're that you are on the
Yeah,
autism
very
spectrum?
late. Actually, when I finished my degree in psychology, I worked with adopted kids, and that was my first specialty. And then I realized that 100% of the kids were autistic or gifted or neurodivergent in some way. And so I started to really read about it, and then I realized that's why I was attracting such kids, because I am autistic myself and neurodivergent and gifted, and I had all these traits that people had when they were coming to me.
What are
So
some
I'm a
of the
late
things?
diagnosed. Sorry.
Yeah, late diagnosis. What year was that for you?
Um, 2018, 2017, around there. And so once I realized that, I really shifted my perspective in the way I work. And I mean, I read a lot, and everything I was reading was fitting my profile. And so then I think it really helps to have that experience to help people who have it also, whether they're kids or adults, or it, people feel heard and understood, then it's much better.
Do you work on like brushing the horse's hairs, learning to connect with that
Yeah,
horse?
yeah. So there's several things I do. The first time we meet, we go to the horses, and I ask the kids to see if there's a horse they're drawn to, and is there a horse they're not drawn to. And in the context of a first meeting, I like to do that because it's really what happens between people when we meet for the first time. Are we, or when we go into a group, are we drawn to that kid or this other kid? Or and then the question is, how do you know? And how do you know they're safe? How do you know you like them? What's happening inside? And so it's a great discussion for the first session to kind of go into, like, what do we do when we meet people for the first time, and at school, or if we're a newbie in a school, or if we meet a new teacher. Sometimes kids come to go to a new school and they don't like the teacher, and they haven't. It happens in the first 10 minutes, and so there's not really a reason that can be explained why they don't like the teacher, but there's something's going on. So I love to do that kind of little practice, and kind of taking a step back from, I don't like this person or this horse, but more about, well, this is happening to me right now and I don't feel safe. That's a better appreciation than I don't like them. Um, then
Sometimes, yeah.
oh, go ahead.
Even even you learn that the child, is not feeling comfortable with that teacher or the horse.
Mhm.
Sometimes they just know, or even
Yeah,
without the words to express it.
yeah, exactly. But they know, and that's really what I try to validate, is like,
But
it's actually a great information, and
yes,
it's a good thing. And so just having that experience, because often when people are neurodivergent, autistic, ADHD, they're very sensitive, and it's actually an asset. It's a good thing. And so just giving that perspective of, like, actually it's a good thing, can be really powerful for people, for kids especially.
yes.
Um,
And what's the next step? Do you do that
Yeah.
meet and greet a few times before
Yeah.
you go on to the next step?
So typically, if they choose a horse that they like most the first time, then we continue with that horse. I would do multiple meet and greets if it's kind of fuzzy and we don't find a horse, or the person say I like all the horses, so that's kind of like, okay, we can't really work with that. um, but usually it's people pick a horse or two so we can decide which one we work with. And then I like to do what you suggested, brushing the horse, and really work on the sensory aspect of the connection with the horse.
Okay.
All my horses have a specific profile. So, for example, I have a horse who doesn't like to be touched, which is a very common experience, right? And so then, when we approach him, he loves to be with people, but just not be touched. So when we approach him, he comes up to us, but he stays at a distance so we cannot touch him. So it's really an interesting exploration to how do we brush him then.
So it was very interesting, the conversation we were having about the autistic children you're working with,
Mhm.
connecting with the horse. So maybe
Yeah.
we could talk more on that topic.
Hmm. I would love to. Yeah.
So when the children felt comfortable with the horse they chosen, do they learn to communicate with the horse by looking at it, or you know,
Hmm.
brushing the horse hair? You could see them like giggling.
Hmm. So we do several things. We start with basic safety, um, and how horses can see, and then how they hear. How do we know? Like, the ears are constantly moving. So what does that mean? So just observing the horse's communication style, and then typically we start with brushing or walking with the horse, and really the idea is to be knowing each other before we do things that are more involved. And so the parallel with life, um, you don't hug people you don't know, stuff like that, questions that I really like about boundaries. And then we talk about also like how it feels when somebody comes into our space and we actually don't want it. And so that's a great exploration. Like, if I go towards a horse and they look away, that means that we're too close. They don't want to be that close. And so those kind of messaging that the horses do are really reflect things we can reflect on in our human life, human experience. So I love to make parallels like that between what the horse says when they say no. How do we know they do say no? Um, and then in life, how do people know we say no? Do we actually say it? Those kind of questions that can be really not easy to decide in life. And
Yes.
for autistic kids, often they really don't, they're not sure about the signaling, what that means and what they should say and not say. And so how do you stay authentic but still communicate in a way that other people can understand, right? And so that kind of messaging of like, well, I can say that, but if I'm not authentic, it's not going to go anywhere. If I say the same thing and I'm authentic, it's going to land whoever it is, autistic or not. And so that kind of exploration is really individual. Everybody feels different about connecting, about setting boundaries, about being in conflict. And so, just seeing that they can actually be themselves and take care of themselves too can be really empowering.
That's a
And so
beautiful
that's,
way of expressing that and and teaching those goals. So and then the
yeah,
children as they grow up being autistic,
yep,
they have their own empowerment so they can learn
hmm,
themselves. They have a say.
yeah,
If they
exactly.
don't feel
And
comfortable hugging you.
mhm, or being touched, or being, anything that is comfortable or uncomfortable. Yeah. And it's
Yes.
really about deciding for themselves what they're okay with and what they're not okay with. So, for example, they're going to be okay with a hug from mom most of the time, right?
Yes.
But not from a friend. And so making that difference between people who are close versus not so close, friends, teachers, social life. And so really learning like what feels right and how do they know that it's comfortable or not comfortable. And it's usually an internal somatic experience that happens. And when they recognize that, they know it forever. So that's the idea of helping them finding that physical experience that tells them, oh, I don't like this. And then they don't have to think about it so much. It just happens really fast and physically.
Yes. Sometimes they can feel they're in power and they have a choice.
Mm-hmm.
It takes time to learn, just like for autistic, they need time to process. They might not answer right away, so
Mm-hmm.
you have to wait until they
Yeah.
respond to you.
Yeah.
And
Exactly. And
horse
being
is
a
the same.
yeah, exactly. And being around horses, we can really watch them do that. Where they start with, no, I don't want to talk to you. They even walk away, they do things. and then we respect that space, and then they come to us. And so really having that experience of like, actually you can make that decision of saying no right away, and then you can take your time and decide when it's okay for you. And so having that experience with an animal, I think, can really help them testing it in life, and with whatever situation they're confronted to.
What other things you work on with autistic children?
Um, so another one I do a lot is leading the horse, and that's really about how do we deal with conflict. So we take the horse out of their daily activity of eating, because that's really what they do all day, and then they willingly come with us typically. And then suddenly they decide, okay, I'm going to eat that piece of grass over there. And so they just go there, right? And then um, we're not necessarily in agreement with that, right? And so, but we can't make the horse move because they're 1,200 pounds. And so, what do we do then? It's a complex interaction, negotiation that happens in life all the time. We ask somebody to do something and they say no, right? And so, how do we deal with that? First, internally, with the anger that may come up, and then, is it really important to us? If yes, how do we how are we more creative in trying to find compromises, as an example, or maybe we just say, okay, fine, I'm good with that. We'll try another time. So it's really an exploration of like, if I want to do something and the other person doesn't, what happens? Or somebody wants me to do something and I don't want to, what happens? And so really exploring those two sides of the coin of I am saying no or the other person is saying no. And we can't force another person to do anything, as well as the horse. So it's really very portable in life, that kind of situation. Um, then, so we do that a few times, and then if the kids are willing and interested, they can ride. And so the riding adds another dimension because then it's a conversation with with the horse while we're sitting on them. Um, and the horse can say no the same way, um, or they can say yes and be really willing and wanting to, or they can decide to go eat. And so it's a similar conversation. It's a little more intense because since we're sitting on the horse, um, the decision the horse makes has more impact on us. If the horse decides to walk away, for example, we're sitting on them, so we walk away too. Those kind of, so socially, those conversations about groups. If somebody in a group does something, do we do it too? Or do we think about it first and say, I'm not going to do that? So for teens, it's a great conversation. People pleasing, for example, can be a really great topic when we're writing. Um, let's see. There's another dimension about riding horses is we can tell the horse what we want in our mind, and the horses can read it. So horses read our intentions. And so when people are riding, it's really a powerful moment when they think walk and the horse does it. And it's not magic. It's really happening. And it's a very powerful sense of agency that comes up then, and connection, because the horse will not hear what we think if they're not connected to us. So then we have a really somatic experience of how it feels to be connected and the outcome. Oh,
Yes, that's a form of communication. So that's beautiful.
yeah. And also, how do we speak to a horse when we just think it? It's very gentle. When we use the squeeze or the hands, or it gets intense for the horse. So learning to gradually increase the level of ask can be really useful. And also receiving that ask from somebody can be also intense for kids. For example, if I want something and I yell, give it to me, right? It's usually not going to go over well. There's going to be some reaction. So with the horse, it's a similar thing. If we think it's a gentle ask. If we push with our legs, that's a level higher of pressure. And so I make a comparison between those levels and how it is in life. How do you ask for something to anybody in your life? Do you yell or do you ask them with please? Those kind of questions. So really learning how to communicate our needs is kind of the objective behind that.
What's the next thing do you do after the riding?
Um, well, there's so many things we do inside the riding. So typically, the next level is. Oh, sorry, my phone is ringing. Typically, the next level is going to be working in groups. And so I start with of people, and then when we work in group of people, I start with a group of two, so that we can really work on the details of interacting. And then we observe the herd. And so, horses have a very, very organized interactions inside the herd. And so we learn to read what's happening between each horse and how they interact with each other. Um, that helps us talk about how is it in your life, in class, any kind of group situation, at home, family, siblings. And then what do horses do when they're in conflict?
They
And usually
make
they
you
don't
feel
they don't do
upset?
anything. Yeah, they don't do anything physical to each other typically. They just make signs or faces, or they're gonna move the other horse with their body. But it's usually very gentle. And so how do we learn from that? And um, and often kids come back and they try at home to do what they saw with the horses. So that's the beauty of that work, I find, because I don't have to tell them how to be. They make their own decisions. And then it's a real, because it's a decision, and it's really an empowering moment and learning, versus you shouldn't do that, you should do this, you should be a certain way. Which, I mean, some of the times we have to, right? But it's not always necessary.
So people, as you mentioned, of communication. So if they come to your horses and they just suffer a loss, or they're frustrated what's happened in their lives, or they pick up the negative energy, then the horses will pick up that from them if they're not in a good energy space.
Yeah, definitely. And what the horses are really looking for is authenticity. So it's not like I shouldn't be angry. It's more like I'm angry and I'm saying it. And I don't act out on it. That's really the main thing. And that's what horses do. They're angry, they're saying it, but they're not going to hurt the other horses. Or kick or whatever. That's an example with anger. If people come in sad, it happened actually a couple of days ago. Somebody came in and one of the horses came right up to them immediately. And it's the horse that had a lot of loss in their life. But I didn't know that about the person yet. Isn't that magical?
Oh, that's beautiful.
And then the person said, well, that horse had a lot of loss in their lives. And I'm like, how do you know that? Because I didn't say anything. And they said they could feel it. And so it's really an interesting phenomenon. They can feel from the horse what they feel themselves. So it goes both ways. And that's the power of that work. It's really like an instinctive, intuitive communication that happens where both felt recognized, the horse and the person. I thought that was beautiful. I actually said, that's why I do this work. This is great. I don't have to say anything. It's great. It's happening just internally.
But that's your gifts
Yeah,
as
too.
being an autistic person, but also you grew up and it came natural to you, so you understood the language of a horse from a young child.
Yeah. And I mean, I always have found horses help me regulate my nervous system. I know how to say it now. When I was a kid, it was like I like to be around them. But I think that's really what happens for me. It's like my level of energy drops. I feel quieter. My anxiety goes down. All this happens around the horses for me.
As horse therapy,
Yeah.
they have that to help a lot of people.
Yeah. I have many cool stories. One of my favorite one is that man who is autistic, who it was very windy, so we couldn't ride. So we decided to work on the ground, and he was a little frustrated, but not really. And then he loved that horse, loved that horse. And so we decided to just actually not even brush, just be there around the horse. And then within 10 minutes, he said, I love you to the horse. And he had never spoken before. And
That's a
so
beautiful
that was
story.
so cool, so beautiful, such an amazing, I don't know,
He found
magical.
his, yeah, magical. He found
He found his voice.
his connection. He found his passion. So sometimes you hear when autistic people have no language and they find their passion or interest or the horses, within time you learn that their words comes out.
Yeah. And also, a lot of times, no words doesn't mean that nothing happens. But that was the lesson for me.
Yes.
It's like
Silence.
that time he spoke, but that meant that all the times before, there was a lot happening that I didn't really know about or see.
It was their inner energy, their inner soul were connecting their souls.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the man who was autistic and nonverbal, he connected with that horse
Mm. Yeah.
by choosing the horse of what you like, or brushing the horse's hair to see how the horse responds to you.
Hmm.
That's where you found your horse.
Yeah. Exactly. And the connection is visible, right? But it doesn't have to be verbal at all. And it doesn't have to be physically touching. The connection can happen without that.
Yes. Does the
So
man
it's a
still come
great,
around?
yeah, exactly. And I don't know, often we see that autism is associated with the incapacity to connect. I don't think so. Because I've seen it, I've seen it so many times. It's just the way to connect is different, I think.
Yes. And,
And so it's really an important distinction, I think.
definitely. I could tell you a story that my first
Hmm.
experience with the horses with my daughter. They found a horse and she brushed the horse's hair, and the horse connected with my daughter. And that's what they did. Every time we go, they brushed the horse hair, and then we walked the horse.
Mm-hmm.
There were a few times she rode the horse a little.
Yeah.
And years later, in another horse stable, these horses were, to work with people were, that needed therapy and stuff. So there was one teacher, was a retired teacher in school. She understood the energies with horses, and she shared that story with us. And one of the times we went there was a new horse that we were talking and showing me in the field of horses. They all were calm, and she was telling me why in energy. There was a bucket of horse brushes, and the first time they were in the same area together, the horse picked up the bucket with his mouth and handed it to my daughter. And it was a beautiful communication and connection, and they connected with their souls. And that was the first time that horse ever did that. And that was a great experience for my daughter.
Yeah. Please brush me.
Huh?
Please brush me.
Yeah.
Here's the equipment. So cool.
Yes.
I love it. Love it. Love it.
And the horse able to communicate.
Yeah.
And
it's so powerful, to have that. It's almost like a different connection language, but also like I picked you, not anybody else. It's really, it's really
Yes.
powerful.
Yes. With nonverbal, there's no words or no language, and nonverbal could mean they have some language.
Actually, they have language that they don't know about, often.
Yes, but this is yes, it definitely comes out when it is time for them to come out.
Exactly. And it's so powerful. I love to see that. And if you're next, if I don't know if you were there when it happened, but you can really feel the difference of that relationship. It's like you're
we were
witnessing
there.
something big.
Yeah, well, it was powerful. Yes, and she was telling about this one horse had a loss, and how sad the horse was for a while. There was another horse there.
Wow.
She was sharing that energy with us, the teacher. So she was explaining, but she knew about the words and emotions and what's happening with that horse, and she was able to tell the story.
And also, I've noticed that those moments, actually, we feel them with animals, but I think they can happen with people the same way. And so I always talk about that, like, well, actually, what you felt here, you can feel it otherwise. That, that kind of really expansion to the life with humans.
You can meet, people in your life that come and go. There's always a learning experiences, just like working with horses, and you could go to different horse places and work with different teachers, but everybody has a different way of doing things, and they have a different knowledge.
Yeah. And it's all fine. because the horses do it anyway. It's great,
Yes. You know, another thing is baiting the horse. They'll show, okay, you spray the horse with water, and you use soap with a brush, and it's just like brushing the horse's hair.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're, even though they might not want to be washed, but they stay there, like you said. And
Yeah, I mean, horses
they,
are kind of really kind. They let us do a lot of stuff.
yes. So
Um,
how many
another.
years?
Oh, go ahead.
How many years you working as a horse therapist after you learn
Right
work with
now,
the
like
students?
it's been 10 plus, almost 11 years. And I really want to expand to the corporate life, like bring executives around the horses and work on management.
Yes, as a consultant,
Neurodivergent executives. Hmm?
like a consultant.
Yeah, it's similar, it's like people who are neurodivergent, they grow up to be adults. And then they in the workplace, it's complicated. So the idea of, helping people that are active in the workplace, helping them with their relationships at work, and you know how do you do in a meeting, somebody is really talking a lot for saying nothing, and how do you deal with it, stuff like that.
Definitely, I think that's very important to help others, owners, to give them an understanding with autism or neurodiversion. They have, they think differently. How everybody
Yeah.
can work together in energy, and how you help them
Yeah.
through their daily activities.
Yeah.
Because other things besides walking the horse or riding the horse, brushing the horse's hair is, feeding the horse.
Hmm.
You
Yeah,
have to,
I love doing that.
and then it's giving water to the bucket to the horses, make sure it has clean water.
Yeah. Yeah. All the what people call chores, that I think can be really nurturing.
Okay.
Like you were saying, feeding the horse, preparing breakfast or whatever, dinner, or distributing hay.
And that
Um,
could be teaching the tax to other people around the world, the routines,
mhm.
and
Yeah.
breaking down step by step, like module
Yeah.
steps.
Hmm. Yeah. Um,
So, what else you like to bring so people can learn from you?
um, a lot of the like being in conflict is one of my favorite things to do. And first is how come we get angry, and then what are our boundaries? Like so the personal space is one boundary that's kind of easy to feel, but emotionally there's other ways, other boundaries. And the horses are very good at boundaries. They really, um, that's how they function in the herd. That's my space is that big, and you're not to come into it, stuff like that. So we can observe that, and then the conflict. it's harder to see in the horses when they're in conflict, but I think it happens because usually when conflict happens or anger, it's that there's some boundary that has been overstepped. And so working on, well, actually we're in conflict and it's not a problem. That's kind of one of my big things. It's a good thing because at the end of the day, conflict is connecting. And so it's really, I love to do that with kids, especially like, okay, we're in conflict, let's go for it. Let's have a conversation and really help them. One, being okay with being in conflict. They don't have to walk away. They actually can discuss about it. And it can really get resolved, typically very simply. It's like next time, don't do it, kind of simple. and it can really help. Really, it can help anyone, but for autistic kids and adults too, it's one of those where it's really hard because the social signals don't add up and don't make sense. And so the typical, right? And so then how do we deal with like actually the way things are happening don't make sense to me? And how can I stay um, authentic within a conflict and not have conflict like everybody else? And so I love to work on that part of the equation with horses. And so when we lead a horse and the horse stops, we are in conflict. There you go. Because we want to go there and they want to go that way. And so that's an example of conflict that's a very basic, simple. There's not many layers, it's just my
So you
opinion, your
wait,
opinion.
then you
Yeah, we
wait
talk
as a
about it.
teacher. You talk about it and you
And I
wait.
name it. I name it is it looks like you guys are in conflict. So really like I name it as a with the term conflict or with the term anger or whatever is relevant in the moment. Because it really helps to make it an event in life versus something really scary or dangerous or not okay. I'm not okay if I'm angry. Those kind of things that happen inadvertently. So yeah, but it's typically those 3-4 activities: observing the herd, um, obs- walking, leading a horse, riding a horse, brushing them. Um, that's pretty. All of these activity are helpful to pick on whatever situation that can happen in life.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
So for autistic people, horses is a beautiful way to connect and
Hmm. And argue.
argue and to learn the language of communication.
Yeah.
It helps to understand your inner circle with the horse,
Hmm.
how you work
Yeah.
together.
Yeah. And it helps to understand themselves in
It
their
helps to
internal functioning too.
help the autistic person to understand themselves, their inner soul, and be
Hmm.
patient and working with the horse.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then could learn to bring it to other situations so it could be a
Yeah.
helpful tool for them.
Yeah. That's summarizing really beautifully what I'm trying to say.
Yes.
It's
So,
really powerful.
so Kathleen, thank you for coming on and sharing your experiences working with the horses and the autistic children and teaching them goals,
Yeah.
emotions,
Thank you.
communications, and energy.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So
Definitely. Thank you.
you're welcome. So stay tuned to my next edition of Athena Autistic Artist College.